All right, I think we are live. Hey, everybody. Welcome to a midweek live video. This is something new. I figured, since a lot of us are stuck at home, we don't have any soccer to watch. We're stuck at home. We can't really leave the house. We're working from home or we're not working at all. I figured this would be a good time to maybe do some more lives, to really touch base with everybody. Pick a topic, something that's kind of fun, and then let's banter about it a little bit throughout the night. We'll keep these a little shorter, maybe 30 minutes or so. But if anybody's in the chat, say announce yourself. Let's get everybody talking. I know Judge Dredd is in the chat already, and thanks for you, Judge, for joining. But we're going to have a little bit of fun tonight. This obviously, it's something new, doing it in the midweek. We normally do our live show on Sundays, and we still will. We're still going to do a show on Sunday. But now we're also, we're gonna test the waters a little bit on this midweek show. Maybe do it on Wednesday, maybe do it on Thursday if you guys like it. So if you participate and join in and enjoy it, then we'll do more of it. So this week, obviously, is a fun topic. So the topic that we chose for this week is not original. We ripped it off. Everybody right now is doing Mount Rushmores, right? MLS is all about it. MLS Extra Time is doing their Mount Rushmores, and I was inspired by them. I think the first time I heard somebody doing kind of a sports, Mount Rushmore was back with maybe the Dan Le Batard show locally. I think he is one of the first people I heard do it years and years ago. But clearly I was inspired by seeing MLS Soccer doing it. So this is our version. In reality, look, this is, in all reality, this is my version of the South Florida Mount Rushmore because I'm the only one talking. But you guys in the chat, I want to hear from you. And give me some of your thoughts. Some people did, give their thoughts on Facebook, and so I may pull some of those up and just and see what those thoughts were as well. But so that'll be fun too. If those people don't join in, we may reference some of those guys on that kind of gave their Mount Rushmores for South Florida soccer. So obviously, what MLS is doing is, they're doing it based on each MLS team. Our MLS team is way too new, right? So we don't know. I mean, we have no idea. But so that's why I figured, soccer in South Florida, it's been around a long time. There's been a lot going on. Hey, Yamila Munoz, how you doing? I know I butchered your name, I'm sure, but it's kind of what I do. But so for what I was looking at is really the legends of soccer that kind of I looked at throughout all of South Florida, and it was tough because some people that I would think nobody may have really heard of, unless you're like, I don't know. I don't want to say, some people definitely heard. For example, one of the guys I thought should be on the Mount Rushmore is Tom Mulroy, Soccer Tom. Not a lot of people may know that are watching this may know who Tom is, but Tom Mulroy, he started the Copa Latina tournament, and it was popular throughout the 90s and early 2000s. So that was a big thing he did. He was the president of the Fort Lauderdale Strikers at some point in the later version. He's been very involved with grassroots soccer. So to me, that's like a soccer icon. He deserves to be up there. I didn't put him up there, just so you know. Jeffrey Reed's in the house. Welcome, Jeffrey. And so as I go along, I expect for you to let me know if I got it right or if I got it wrong. And I'm curious, everybody that's kind of stuck at home right now, you're working at home. How many of you are like me? You're at that point where you need a haircut because you haven't been able to go to the barber. You're not feeling motivated to shave, so you're just letting it, whatever. Because you walk out of your bedroom in your shorts and you go to work, right, on your desk. In your office or in your dining room table, wherever you can, or maybe you just like throw the laptop in your bed and you work from there. Yeah, it's Need a haircut, guys. When's this gonna end? I need a haircut. Anyways, here's the question marks. Who would you put on the Mount Rushmore for South Florida soccer? So I'll kick it off, and tell me if I've got it right. Tell me if I got it wrong. And, this is personal because everybody may have a different Mount Rushmore. Now, the ones that I saw on Facebook, let me go back and look. The few people, one, two. There was, one name in particular that was kind of a no-brainer, right? So let's start off with our first. And I put up, when I didn't go say left to right, I went George Washington, probably the most important, right? Then all the way to the right, you got Lincoln, another very popular president. So I used those guys as my two starting points. First off, you got to go with Rocky Ray Hudson, right? You can't disagree with me on that unless you're just really young and you just don't know who he is. But you're going to learn because Ray Hudson is the color analyst for Inter Miami now. All those games are going to be on CBS 4. That was announced today. We kind of knew that was happening, but it was finally announced today. So on CBS 4, you're going to hear Ray's, comments and all kinds of fun stuff, so let's talk a little bit why I think Ray deserves to be on that etched in stone, carved in stone. And I'm curious, how long did it take to build the Mount Rushmore? I didn't look that up. But all right, so 1977, he came to Fort Lauderdale Strikers. So he came from Newcastle United. He was loaned in 1977 to the Fort Lauderdale Strikers. And then in 1978, he became an official member of the team. He got 151 caps and 38 goals from 78 to 83. I mean, he played 153 games or appearances with the Fort Lauderdale Strikers. I mean, that alone, he was the rock of the Strikers. I don't know how many of you guys are close to my age that grew up going to see the Strikers, but I would go to Lockhart Stadium, the original Lockhart Stadium, back when I was, a kid, and I would see Ray Hudson tearing up the fields when I was young, and then also when I was a little older, and at some point they brought back the Strikers in the late 80s. So from 88 to 89, he came back to the Strikers, and, because the Strikers were sold to Minnesota. Their indoor version of the Strikers were sold to Minnesota. They became the Minnesota Strikers. And, so, he went with them. But eventually he came back to the Strikers. And in those days of the Strikers, 88, 89, that I was just out of high school. So I'm a young adult. I remember going to see those games. I remember Y100 was promoting those games. You'd see a lot of guys from Y100 out at Lockhart promoting the Fort Lauderdale Strikers at that time. The very low budget, I think it was the APSL, American Pro Soccer League, I think is what it was called, or I don't know if it was America Premier Soccer League. Correct me if I'm not sure. I don't remember exactly what it stood for, but the APSL. And so you can't deny the only bad mark I'd say on Ray Hudson was he did spend one season with the Tampa Bay Rowdies. 1990, he was with the Tampa Bay Rowdies. That's his only real hiccup that he did. I mean, nobody that is a South Florida soccer fan can really enjoy the Rowdies. Just can't. I enjoy the fact that they're still around and that they've got and the legacy and all that. I enjoy the history of them, but I can't like them as a team. I mean, if you're a South Florida fan. So that's his one strike. But then again, he was back with the Strikers in 1991. Then he became the coach. He became actually the color analyst for the Miami Fusion. And that was amazing. Eventually became the coach from 2000 to 2001 of the Miami Fusion. And in that, he led what some may say was the best Fusion team ever, right? Some people say that Ray Hudson's Miami Fusion team was the best Fusion team, MLS team ever. I mean, imagine what that MLS team with Preki, Jim Rooney, Serna, Pablo Mastroeni, so many names, and you guys will fill them in the chat as well, the names that I'm forgetting. But so many great names that he coached. And the thing is, it was such a great coaching job too, because some of those guys went off to other teams that did not have nearly the same success that they did with the Fusion. So it was just the right group of guys at the right time. So, and of course, you know, you guys all know him from his calling games on Gold TV and beIN Sports, where he's like coined the term magisterial. I mean, he's known for his wacky comments, and I can't wait until he brings those wacky comments and things. I said this I was on an Instagram Live with my friends at Caneswear, and if you haven't gone to Caneswear, what are you waiting for? Go to Caneswear. Go to caneswear.com. And you can use our promo code for this week. I didn't put it in this slide deck, but the promo code for this week is Beckham. You'll save 10%. So I did a live Instagram with them on Wednesday, and you know, in that conversation with them, we were talking a little bit about Hudson and that team, and just how amazing. I actually lost my train of thought. All right, so what are you guys saying in the chat? I know this is blasphemy, but Kaká would have been here. I know he was at Orlando City, but the man is a legend. Either that, or we could use our founding fathers, Moss brothers, Beckham's son, and Clore. So I cannot put Kaká in the South Florida Mount Rushmore. Maybe it'd be in the Central Florida, the Orlando one, but in South Florida. When I mean South Florida, I'm talking Fort Lauderdale, Miami, right? I don't want to call it the Miami Mount Rushmore, because most of the pro games have been played in Fort Lauderdale for now, right? So I wanted to call it South Florida. So I can't include Kaká, even though he definitely deserves to be on the Orlando City, version of the Mount Rushmore. B. King is dating himself and says that 1974 Toros had Ronnie Sharp, Warren Archibald, and Steve David. Yeah, I mean that is before my time, because 1974 I was 5 years old, so I was a little too young to enjoy the Toros, but I definitely enjoyed the Strikers. All right, so I spent way too much time on the first etched stone. So let's go to our second, and this is a no-brainer, I think, to most of you that watch this. You know we're Inter Miami fans, so we've got our man Beckham on there. Now, the argument could be, should it be David Beckham, or Hey Moss, or Marcelo Clore, right? So I put Beckham because he's the face of the organization, right? And you might argue it should be Moss or over Clore, but I would argue Clore, because, and I didn't put him here because I'm putting Beckham to represent the entire ownership group, but Marcelo Clore, man, think about what he's done for this club. Because without Clore, we wouldn't have a team, right? He tried to bring us a team with partnering with Barcelona back in 2008, 2009, something like that. That fell apart because of the recession, right? We're lucky we got our team off the ground now, because we're about to go into another recession. We got this team off the ground, so we're good. That killed that deal with Barcelona, but Clore was behind that. And he didn't give up on South Florida. He didn't give up on Miami. And eventually he partnered up with Beckham. And thanks to Beckham having his Groupon to get us a franchise for $25 million, whereas Nashville, coming in at the same time that we're coming in, paid $150 million, right? So Just Skill says Inter Miami is trash and MLS is the worst league. All right, so why are you watching, Just Skills? Why are you watching a show that focuses on Inter Miami and in South Florida? So you don't need to watch. Just see ya. If we're not talking the topics you like, you don't have to be here. Anyways, Beckham. So Beckham. They got a statue of Beckham out in front of L.A. Maybe there's going to be one here in Miami at some point. So I think if you're building this soccer Mount Rushmore for South Florida, you've got to put Beckham on there. I mean, Beckham also could be on the Mount Rushmore for the entire MLS because he changed MLS. The Beckham rule was created, right? Designated player was created because of David Beckham. He changed the entire league. What we're living in now is all the effects that David Beckham had on the league. So Beckham has to go there. And B King, you're saying Joe Robbie. I'm going to tell you he's not on here, but I debated that one a lot. Joe or Tim Robbie, right? Any of the Robbies, because Tim Robbie really ran the club, but Joe Robbie started the Strikers, and his wife actually, on paper, owned it, because back then you couldn't own two professional sports. He owned the Dolphins. You couldn't own the Dolphins and the Strikers, so he put it in his wife's name. I thought about it. This is what made it so hard, is thinking of only 4. And it's really the 4 that maybe impacted me, right? Because this is my list. And I of course, I want to hear your list as well as we keep going. So far, what do you think? Got Hudson and we got Beckham. It's all right so far, right? Or hey, you might be getting ahead of yourself a little bit. Just hang on there, buddy. Just hang on. You might be getting a little bit ahead. All right, so my third. Now, this one you might disagree with, but again, it's my list. This is when I think of South Florida soccer, you can't get away from this hair. Valderrama. Come on now. The Colombian superstar, Valderrama, could be considered the original designated player here in South Florida. Now, of course, that is if you're not going to go and say that George Best and Gerd Mueller and those guys from the Strikers, those I guess technically would be the original designated players. But if we're thinking MLS, Valderrama is the original. He was the face of the Miami Fusion. I mean, he's got a mar on his career, as well as that he's played for Tampa twice, but he likes Florida. He stayed in Florida. I guess you can't blame him. At least it wasn't the Rowdies, the mutiny. Nobody really cared about the mutiny, and that's one of the reasons why they went away. Unfortunately, so did the Fusion. But so I think, and think about the Colombian market. I mean, there was talk that they made the Miami Fusion colors blue and yellow because of Valderrama. They were trying to cater to that Colombian market. Now, of course, the Colombians are more yellow than blue, but there is blue in there as well. So, I enjoyed watching Valderrama those 2 seasons from what was it? When he was with us from 97 to 99. So for 3 seasons, I enjoyed watching him walk up and down Lockhart's pitch so much. Nobody walks a soccer field like Valderrama. Nobody can walk a soccer field like him. He barely, if ever, ran, and he would get mad at players when they didn't put the ball at his feet. He would yell at them like, here, on my feet, put it on my feet. He would get frustrated and mad at them if it wasn't directly at his feet, right? Because he did not want to run at this point in his career. But I don't know. What do you guys think about Valderrama being on the Mount Rushmore? Now, this is one that, of all the people that I saw posting in Facebook and stuff like that, they did not put him. But for me personally, I mean, his face was plastered on the billboard. He was the image for Miami Fusion for a few seasons. And he brought so much attention to it. And it was such a joy, really, to watch his pinpoint passes. He may have walked the field. He may not have put a lot out, of effort in running, but he could just pinpoint those passes perfectly. So, B King, I know you're of the older persuasion like me, and you were thinking of putting a Gerd on there, or Nanny. I think you meant Nene, but I was creating this in Photoshop, right? This imagery, And I did start putting Gerd Mueller up there. So, it's not easy, right? Because you're going through you don't want it to be just strikers focused, right? Because easily I could have gone with, and that maybe we should do that someday, a strikers only Mount Rushmore, and then do a Miami Fusion only Mount Rushmore. That could be fun too. We got to think of some fun topics while we have no soccer, right? So those could be fun. But I did download a photo of Gerd Mueller. I did start like silhouetting him, and silhouetting is removing the background. I started putting him up there, and then I just kind of I thought, now so my real look for me, my top three were dead. I was putting in Hudson, Beckham, and Valderrama. There's no way around it. I was putting in these three. The fourth is where I really debated quite a bit. And I sat there and I thought for a while, and I was thinking of Gerd. I was thinking of even George Best. Now, George Best was at the end of his career and he was a drunk, but he still was a huge name to come and play in South Florida. But he didn't play enough games. Gerd Mueller was an amazing player. So he played quite a few games with the Strikers. So I thought about him as well. But at the end of the day, I settled, and this is not settling by any stretch, but I decided on Nene Cubillas. So I'm with you, B King. Nene is like the man down here in South Florida, right? So if you think about it, Nene was, in 1972, he was elected the South American Footballer of the Year, right? So now we're and that's still happening. Players that are football players of the year, Atlanta's got one of those guys, the South American Footballer of the Year player. We were doing it back in the 70s, right? So in 1972, he was elected South American Footballer of the Year, and then some years, it was 7 years later that he eventually ended up in the Strikers. But he played a lot of years with Alianza Lima from Peru, which is where he's from, and eventually he played for Fort Lauderdale at his first go-around from 1979 to 1983 with 139 appearances, 65 goals. And one thing that was amazing is him scoring 3 goals in 7 minutes against the Los Angeles Aztecs in 1981. Take that, Uncle Ed. Uncle Ed, for those of you that don't know, back in those days was living in L.A. He was an L.A. Aztecs fan. And Nene Cubillas put it on him in 1981. 3 goals in 7 minutes is pretty amazing. Charlie George was a beast also. He played for Arsenal, says Judge Dredd. All right. I'm not sure I don't know the name Charlie George. So you got me on that one. I'm not sure who that is. But Nene, let's go back to some of my stats that I pulled up on Nene. He also played for the Strikers indoor. How many of you guys, maybe it's just B King, I don't know, did you go see the Strikers play indoors? I did. I went to a few games. It was at the Hollywood Sportatorium, which is down Pines Boulevard, west of I-75. That is now just houses, right? It was a Sportatorium, was a concert venue. Elvis played there. I saw many 80s metal concerts there. Judas Priest, Dokken, Aerosmith. I saw so many concerts there. Motley Crue, so many out there. And Ed's in here. Ed, the Aztecs fan is in here. Yeah, we are hating, but Nene definitely put him on the Aztecs. But back then, the outdoor game was dying because of the NASL. But the Sportatorium, they played 1 season of indoor soccer for the Strikers, and I would go there with my soccer team as a kid. The entire team would go there and make a bunch of noise and see that. Then, of course, they were sold to Minnesota and became the Minnesota Strikers. But he didn't. The great thing about Nene Cubillas is Nene didn't leave with when they moved to Minnesota. He decided to stay in South Florida and became a member of the South Florida Sun, which also then became the Fort Lauderdale Sun. The Sun was kind of like they still had the colors of the Strikers. They didn't have the bumblebee, but they had the colors of the Strikers. They were kind of like, they were still playing in Lockhart. They were kind of like the cheaper version, second division version of the Strikers. And they didn't play for very long. The South Florida Sun has a checkered past involving drug dealers and all kinds of interesting ways that they found to fund the club. So Google that if you look into it. Mr. Nick, Mark Anderson would have been a great one too. That's why it's really, really hard. Mark Anderson was a stud for the newer version of the Fort Lauderdale Strikers. Love that guy. He was great, and he's still, I think, playing over in England. He went back home. But anyways, back on to Nene Cubillas, who then also came back to the Strikers in 1988, scored 7 goals. This is a tail end of his career. He finished playing only 8 games, but finished playing for the Miami Sharks. How many of you remember the Miami Sharks? They played at the Orange Bowl, I believe. And I do think I might have gone to like one Miami Sharks game back in the day. I did go to some Miami Freedom games. But I think I might have gone to a Sharks game, but Nene played there. But, how amazing of a person Nene was. Back in 1987, there was let's bring up his picture. There was a famous Alianza Lima air crash that happened. There was a plane crash, and Cubillas went back to Peru, left Miami, went back to Peru, played for Alianza for free. It's a pretty stand-up dude. And eventually he managed the team a little bit as well. And he's still local. He's still a local guy. As far as I know, he's still here in South Florida. I've known his sons. They worked for one of the later versions of the Strikers, worked with them at some point. So, he's still involved. He even coached, I think it was a Gold Coast soccer league team back at some point. The Millonarios or something like that. I forgot. It might have been in Miramar, something like that. But what? So Judge Dredd remembers the Freedom. Only the Sharks I remember though are the San Jose Sharks. All right, that's hockey, isn't it? So that's it. That's my Mount Rushmore. What do you think? It's not bad, right? So. In the comments, either now or in the comments, if you're watching this later, put the comments down below for what your Mount Rushmore was. So when some of my friends are on Facebook, some of the names that they put were Hudson, Nene, Mueller, and Tim Robbie. So that's a pure Strikers Mount Rushmore. And my friend James Nolan had posted that up, and I can't argue that for Strikers. That's a great one. Steve Sari, a friend of ours, said Ray Hudson, Ron Newman. Ron Newman was the coach of the Strikers, and he was like such a high-paid, big, well-known coach, big-time guy to be playing, coaching in America. It was a big deal. He was a rock star. He eventually coached, I think it was the Kansas City Wizards in their first year of MLS, 1996. I think it was only for the first year. I'm not sure. Didn't have such a great year with them, but Ron Newman, David Beckham, and of course, and then he put in Eddy Rogers. That's another name. Like I said, Tom Mulroy. Eddy Rogers is another name that most of you don't know because he's a behind-the-scenes guy. But if you're really connected to South Florida soccer, you've seen him around. You'll see him around with Inter Miami. He's still involved. He's going to be involved with the training facility here in Fort Lauderdale. So Eddy Rogers is still involved. He's been a promoter for soccer. I think he was a kit man at one point, or a trainer or some sort, and then kind of worked his way up. But he has a company called Kicks International that puts on soccer tournaments. So he definitely could be up there. And I debated, do I put one of these behind the scenes kind of guys on there? But I didn't. I wanted to put people that you might have actually heard of or know. So Judge Dredd loves my Rushmore. Thank you so much, sir. And if you guys, Ron Newman had the idea for the Strikers to write out before the game in different to ride out before the game in different vehicles. I don't know really what that means, but maybe I'm just reading it wrong. Sorry. But so what do you think, guys? Should we do more of these midweek lives? And you know, this one, you know, doesn't have the largest of numbers of viewers. Like, we get a much better viewership on Sunday. I'm not sure if that's because of its midweek or if that's because this is just our first one. So I think, you know, if you guys like this and you want to see it continue, let me know in the comments below. This is me flying solo because Ed works at night, right? So he can't join me. So this is just kind of me flying solo with you guys. And in the future, we can continue to take voicemails as well. I did not connect that this time, but we can connect it and take voicemails on the topic. We would, in that case, we would probably ask for them to be topic related. So whatever topic we decide to discuss, you know, every game they would ride out with different vehicles. All right, that's cool. It looks like B King saying, you know, with the strikers, that's kind of a rock star type of thing. That's very, very cool. I like it. All right, so let me know your thoughts in the comments and in the comments below and your comments now if you want to keep it going. Eric Thomas wants me to keep it going. So this is just kind of like my thoughts are, we don't have any soccer. We'll do a midweek thing. And to be honest, this is easier. I don't have to edit. Right, so this is a little easier. There's no editing involved, but I like the fact that we're communicating with you guys as a community that we're trying to build here with Futbol Miami TV. You guys are part of it, and we're just goofing off, right? So, Eric, you can always contribute. There will be if you couldn't contribute on the South Florida topic, there is definitely a topic we can create at some point where you, my sir, can contribute. And somebody had posted in here, I think it was Judge Dredd early on, it was asking what my favorite comic series was. That's a tough one, man. I think you heard in the Sunday show that we're a bit of me and Ed are both kind of nerds, like soccer, like sci-fi. I love Disney, I love comics, I love all that kind of stuff. And I don't know. I guess I was a big DC and Marvel guy. I got a lot of Captain America, a lot of Superman, some Batman. I don't know. And Eric is saying keep the stadium shows going too. That's a little tough when the stadium reviews are a little tough right now when we're supposed to be at home. And what little that is being done at the stadium is really behind the scenes. There's nothing I can really see. I might drive over there and break the rules a little bit and drive over there on this weekend and see if there's anything I can see. But if there's nothing I can see, I'm just filming the same old. So I don't know. So, all right, guys, I think that's it. I'm just rambling on now. We're going to keep these midweek shows a little bit shorter. So thanks so much for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. And we will see you on Sunday evening with me and Ed both, and Ed's trying to line up a guest for this week, so we'll see how that turns out, if we get one or not. And we'll talk to you later. See you guys.